back to another episode of Prime Time. I've got Nick beside me. Dad's attending to some important business. He's not with us, Richie Kairouz, right now. But look, another great weekend of sports, some NFL, some NBA results that went our way personally. But the UFC was probably the highlight of the weekend.
Big knockout by Pereira, big heavyweight knockout as well. People can now call him for John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. Whether he comes back and versus Stipe or Big Tommy, we'll wait and see.
Stipe looked like he couldn't even walk. He looked like he needed like a walking stick. It was hard to watch. There was no way he was going to get into octagon.
I don't think John Jones is going to fight him anytime soon. But for me, what I love is seeing Donald Trump in attendance at the UFC. You see all the big Hollywood stars come, and then you see Donald Trump there as well. It's like he's that cool.
They make him do the whole UFC walkout. So it was him, Kid Rock, Tucker Carlson, walking out to American Badass. And the place is going nuts for him in New York, which is probably one of the most liberal states in America.
Tucker Carlson there does make me laugh as well because he's a political guy. You're not cool. You don't get to walk out with Trump. I don't get it. He's a nerd.
I mean, he looked like he enjoyed it. He enjoyed the walkout. But yeah, that brings us to the fan question of this week. It's UFC related. Fan question of the week was the Pereira fight stopped too early?
No, it wasn't. I think it's a bit of an unpopular opinion now considering the TikTok and Twitter comments online. But I think the fight was stopped at the right time. You could see Yuri Prohaska's arms were flailing. He himself said he was knocked out. And what do you want to see? Someone get knocked out while they're on the floor, cop a few more punches, losing 5 years on their life?
I just think across UFC 295, there were a lot of knockouts. The official let it go to the guy was completely knocked out. This one just looked a little bit premature because there was a bit of a scuffle. He kind of rolled off him towards the end once it was called off. I don't know. I just feel like it could have gone a little bit longer. Look, and that would have just put everyone's complaints to rest.
In hindsight, you can maybe say you could have let him throw a few more punches, but if Yuri Prohaska said himself that he was knocked out, what more do you need to see? I don't want to see Francis Ngannou bashing Stipe Miocic's head in.
He said it after the fact, but I mean, when it's all said and done, you don't know what could have happened in the octagon.
And
I could have just snapped into
the argument. The argument of Prohaska's been in that position before, where he's been punched and nearly knocked out. But again, it's a game time decision. The ref has seen that he's not in position to continue the fight, and he's been knocked out. Pereira's a bloody good striker. If you're going to get him, you saw what he did to Sean Strickland. Once he gets another one on you, you're losing brain cells. That's it. You're done.
He saved him from a few brain cells, a few more brain cells being lost. But no, I agree with you. Pereira, I think he's the 9th person to be a double champ in the UFC.
Not a double champ. He's a 2-division champion.
2-division champion.
He hasn't held the titles simultaneously.
So and he called out Adesanya at the end of the fight. So people want to see that fight again. I'm keen to see it. I don't think Adesanya wants it. I don't think Adesanya. Well, he wants to be off till 2027, but I'll give you the hot tip. He's not going to stay out that long.
Adesanya has already tried to go up and fight in that weight class, and he was unsuccessful. So I don't see
why. W for Pereira.
Why would you go up and verse your nemesis in a weight class where you're going to be the unlikely, person to win that match?
Well, the next UFC event is Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards in Las Vegas, so keep an eye out for that one. But let's move over to the NRL Rumor Roundup. Mark Nwanganituaze. That's a handful to say, but we can say it pretty well. Marky Mark from the Wallabies is scheduled to meet with Nick Politis and the Sydney Roosters this week.
I think he's already maybe met with the Roosters, and now he's meeting with the Wallabies on the back of that. He's come out and said, hey, perfect world I stay in rugby, but I'm open to different opportunities. Really, I think that just means he's open to the Roosters' bank account. That big money that the Roosters and Politis have, who wouldn't say no to that? I'd say yes to it.
If there's an NRL club to poach someone from Rugby Union, it's the Sydney Roosters. Like, what a club to go. You're not going to a struggling Bulldogs, or the Dragons aren't trying to sign you. You're going to a successful club with a great system in a great area in Bondi around successful players. It's the one club that you go, yeah, I could see myself here. And it's a great substitution for Joseph Suaalii. Like, not that they're a 1-for-1. They're both quality outside backs, could play on the wing, play in the centres, probably play at fullback as well. Both have that Rugby Union similarity. I think it's a perfect swap.
And in a perfect world for Mark, if I'm him, great strategy. Come to the Roosters for 2 years, then go back to the Wallabies, big money, play in the World Cup again.
Once you play at the Roosters and say everything goes well for him, and you become an Origin-style player, we're quite comfortable on the beaches of Bondi. I'll tell you, ask Joey Manu. He doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to go to the Dragons.
Yeah, because the Dragons
He doesn't want to go. I don't think he wants to go to the All Blacks.
Are you saying the Dragons are the same as the Wallabies? Actually, no, you could say they're equally shit.
You could say they're, right at this point in time, their current standings, possibly. I don't know. Okay, well, what about this one? Ronnie Palmer, dismissed from the West Tigers. He hasn't been without a club since he was 21 years old. Ronnie Palmer hasn't been without a club since 1971.
Ronnie Palmer, you could say, is the GOAT of on-field trainers.
Yeah.
So if I'm a club, with that wealth of knowledge that he has, just sign him.
I understand it's a wealth of knowledge, but you got to think, has the game passed Ronnie Palmer? Because he's up there with the trainers now that have just put, just spray the water on it, you'll be right. There's a lot of sports science involved now. Ryan Pappenhausen's going over to the US. I don't think it's in Ronnie Palmer's wheelhouse anymore.
So you're saying structural unemployment, Ronnie Palmer's been made redundant?
He's been made redundant with the times, and he should enjoy retirement. I know, yes, he might have some great knowledge as a trainer, and maybe some hoodwinks and some cheats. Tricks of the trade as an on-field trainer, but I think his time's passed, and let the younger up and coming on-field trainers
I'm just saying,
get onto the scene.
If I'm an NRL player and I've got a cramp, there's no other trainer I want rubbing deep heat on me than Ronnie Palmer.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. Well, the Warriors want to do a player trade with Adam Fanua-Blake and another club that's interested, whether it be the West Tigers or the Dragons. I thought he has a commitment for 2024. He may have a commitment till 2024, but would it be fair for the Warriors to get a trade for any of the players from these teams?
I think this is the Warriors accepting that they're going to lose this player. They've come out and said, okay, if we're going to lose him, if he's going to go to a Sydney club, we at least want a player in return, at least someone. So the Tigers or the Dragons, I don't think they could offer up someone of his caliber, but at least it's something to give them some sort of compensation for losing him. Because he's one of their best players.
Who's a fair trade from the West Tigers to go to the New Zealand Warriors? Like Alex Twile just committed to the West Tigers. So
I think maybe get like Adam Dewey or something. Get someone that's a quality skill player, because they've already said...
It's not the same though. It's not a one-for-one. You need a forward that's going to do some damage in the middle. Adam Fanua-Blake is a top 5 forward in the comp when he's on.
Taniela Paseka? Is that Manly now? What am I talking about?
So that's what I mean. I don't think there's a fair trade on any of those teams. Maybe Jack DeBellin, possibly.
So I'm just saying someone that can at least make up for the loss, even if it's a marginal make-up, at least it's something. Because it's better than just letting him go for nothing.
I'm not going to have a go at Adam Fanua-Blake because he's a scary man. I know he's got some bikie connections, but why can't anyone commit to the Warriors? Why does always someone want out? Aren't you there? Aren't you around your family?
Okay.
Isn't this where you grew up?
Have you been...
So you're what, is he homesick?
Yeah, it's homesick. You've been overseas before. Once you spend an extended period of time away from your family, away from what you know, you want to come back.
You make a commitment to the club. You're in your homeland, obviously. You're adored by the club. The social media loves you. You're loved online. You're loved by the fans. What makes you all of a sudden not want to commit to the club and not fulfill your contractual obligation? I don't understand it. A lot of people that have gone to New Zealand don't want to go. It's similar to Canberra too. I don't know if it's the cold. I don't know if it's being away from everyone and not in the glitz and the glamour of Sydney or Melbourne. But what is it?
It's just being away from your family. It's just getting homesick. I understand. I've been away for an extended period of time, and that's not even 3-4 years. He's been gone for, 2-3 years now? You get homesick. Sydney's what he knows. It's where he grew up. It's where most of his family, immediate family, probably is. I don't know. I can understand why he wants to come back. But if you do make a commitment, at least try and see it out.
Now, we've seen crisis meetings at the Bulldogs. Behind the scenes, CCTV footage shot has been shared around to the news of Phil Gould in a crisis meeting with Raylan Fatala-Mariner. Obviously, he's a captain of the Bulldogs, being forced out of the club, told not to come to training. So, again, is this where the state of the Bulldogs are at the moment?
Very sad state of the Bulldogs, that your captain, someone who you said last year is the leader of your club, you've now said your relationship's beyond repair, don't come back to training. It's just disgusting. Like, Raymond Fatala-Mariner, I think, is a serviceable player, good forward, and the Bulldogs, who haven't even signed Takiyaho yet, don't have forwards. Let him come into the club, at least show good, leadership at training, something where he's an expert in leadership and sort of being a veteran of the club. Maybe not an expert, but, he's a veteran of the club.
No, I don't see how you can name someone club captain one year, right? I don't know, you name someone club captain one year, and then the next year you say don't come to training. It doesn't really make sense.
Doesn't add up.
But also, they're saying this is directly correlated to when he voiced some concerns from some of the playing group last year about the unfair working conditions, in the wrestle room or training or whatever it be. But that's the job of the captain, to talk for the playing group. So, I don't know. It's the Bulldogs. I'm not going to say it's a mess. With the recruits that they have, it looks like they're on the up. It's
an uphill battle.
They've transformed their roster dramatically. But if they don't perform this year, I don't even know if it goes to the coach, but I just think the organisation as a whole has to have a look at itself.
Substantial change.
Yeah.
But staying on and circling back to Marky Mark, Peter Valantis has come out and said he wants NRL clubs to go out and poach players from rival codes, and NRL clubs will get a salary cap exemption if they get these players.
So hang on. So he's given permission to rugby league clubs, NRL clubs, that you can poach the best rugby union players or rival codes.
He said rival codes, but that essentially means rugby union because you're not going to get signed.
And what, you'll
AFL
get
player.
salary cap increases, so that means third-party deals can come in and you can do whatever you want?
I think they just more so get exemptions from the cap. So if you sign, say, Mark Nawaka, you're not going to have a lot of his salary attributed to the salary cap. It'd be a third-party deal or a lot of the money subsidised.
If Rugby Australia's on its last legs and Peter V'landys goes to other clubs and says, go for the kill and poach all these players, go empty your bank accounts, give them whatever you want, that could be the death of Rugby Union. Like, honestly, they're struggling for stars at the moment.
Is it a dirty play, though, from V'landys?
Why is it a dirty play? If you want your sport to be, you want rugby league supremacy in Australia, it's a very smart thing to do. It's also a great way to grow the game internationally, because if you look at the players that they could sign just outside of Australian rugby, look at internationally, like for New Zealand, you've got Ardie Savita that could go. Imagine him playing for the Warriors.
Geordie Barrett met with the Storm last year. He could easily sign with Melbourne.
With the Storm last year, didn't he?
So like he's another realistic player that could come over, transition to rugby league. I think he's got the skill set to do it.
Max Jorgensen plays for the Waratahs, young player, future Wallaby. Imagine poaching him at a young age, giving him, telling the Dragons, listen, we'll give you $1 million, come play at the Dragons right now.
Just play on the wing, play fullback, try and use your skill set. And then one out of left field is someone from England, Freddie Stewart, who's a fullback, 6'5" English player. Someone that, he's kind of like a novelty. Someone that could be 6'5", come and play fullback, whether it be at the Warriors, whether it be at Canberra. They love their English players, so he could definitely come over and make his mark on rugby league.
I'm just saying, if V'landys gives clubs the green lights to do this, and say the Roosters sign Marky Mark, it's the death of rugby union.
I like it. I like it as a response to rugby union signing rugby league players.
Yeah, it's a great response to them signing Joseph Suaalii. I don't think Rugby Australia have the money that NRL clubs do right now, and the NRL as a whole right now. They're not as successful, coming off the back of a shit World Cup, right? And now you lay this shit on me. Now you lay V'landys giving clubs the green light to go poach their players. Rugby in the next 5 years could be dead.
Internationally,
because
it's okay.
Even if they poached them at a young age, which the NRL already has done Angus Crichton, with
Cam Murray.
When you think of players like the recent Dally M, Kalen Ponga, who was a rugby union player as well. So they already doing this. Imagine getting the green light to empty the bank account on these players. I can't see rugby union thriving in the next 5 years.
Well, I think enough, on the back of the World Cup especially, they've got enough international interest where Australia doesn't really matter to rugby union as much as what it probably did back in the day.
I'm just saying, I could see rugby union taking a back seat to A-League. That's how bad
No.
I'm telling you right now, they're not going to have any stars. No one's watching the Super Rugby. It's on Stan Sport.
A-League sucks.
We had a failed World Cup campaign. It's really the lowest point Australian rugby's ever been.
And it can only go up.
And now it can only go up from here, but what if you have no talent to take it up?
What
if you have no talent to take it up and the NRL take all the talent?
As much as I'd like to see players like Ardie Savita make their move over, I don't think there's many rugby union players that can cut it in rugby league. And that's a harsh reality. There's not enough talented rugby union players. Bro, it's harder to play rugby league than it is union.
Not if you're a quality outside back.
It's
like
hard.
You said, not if you're Geordie Barrett that can play in a centre, a fullback, or a wing position.
They're the 0.1% of rugby union players that can make the move over, and then even then they got to be paid very handsomely to make that move.
I disagree, but I think it's a smart way to grow the game. Another thing that came up over the news this week and received a lot of backlash on Twitter was Curtis Scott meeting with the NRL to try and get a second chance and play in the NRL again. A lot of people saying he shouldn't be given a second chance because of all of his off-field dramas. But look, he's come out. He's openly apologised. He says he attends AA meetings. A lot of what he's done off field has been alcohol driven. He wants to be a force for change in the NRL. He deeply regrets it. He says, he has to live with these issues daily in his life, and he wants to change. And he thinks he should be given a second chance. Do you think he should be given a second chance?
As a good Christian man, you can only give everyone a second chance. How can I say, with all the other players that have received a second chance in the NRL, that Curtis Scott doesn't receive one? He's one of the quality players in the comp. He's won the comp with Melbourne. Again, he's apologised for his wrongdoings. He's acknowledged what he's done was wrong. He's come out and apologised. What more do you want him to do? Give him a second chance. If he stuffs up again, then you ban him.
He had a 12-month correctional order as well. It's not like he hasn't served his time outside of rugby league as well. I'd also say, you look up NRL scandals on Google. First article, Fox Sports, 66 scandals across a 4-year period. In this 66 scandals, you got home invasions, you got drug possessions, you've got drug supply, right? You've got close to manslaughter, you've got animal cruelty / animal sexual acts, right? So I think the game has been been brought in to disrepute enough. I think you can give a 26-year-old a second chance for his off-field discretion.
And he's a quality centre. You want the best players playing. And I understand people may have quarrels with what he's done, but if he served his time and he's apologised, what more do you want him to do? What, you're going to ruin the rest of his life because of a few mistakes? You can't do that to people.
Mate, put him on a conditional order, one strike policy and you're out. But obviously he's deeply remorseful. He wants to change his life around, and he could be an example for upcoming NRL players and serve as a great educational. It serves as a great educational form for players getting into the game. I think he deserves a second chance.
I don't like citing the wrongdoings of other players or previous players, but in this case, if you've seen people do stuff before and change their career and change their life around, why can't Curtis Scott do it? Why can't you, extend that olive branch to Curtis Scott and let him change his life?
I think people on Twitter and your moral high ground journalists need to take it easy a little bit. He's 26 years old. He's got his whole life ahead of him. Give him a second chance. And a struggling club like the Dragons or like the Bulldogs, give the kid a train and trial. Let him prove himself.
Another media blow-up over the week, which I think is a big overreaction, but it's the off-season. They've got to do with their time what they can, is the NRL Draw got released. The big 2024 NRL Draw, which includes the Vegas fixture and the rest of the season. What were the big takeaways from the media?
Look, the big takeaway from the NRL Draw being released is the Parramatta Eels being given the shittest draw back-to-back. They got a shit draw last year. They went 1-4 to start the year, never really recovered. This year, if you look at what they've given, they have to play all the top 5 teams from 2023 twice, while playing just the bottom 4 teams twice. No, sorry, while playing just 2 of the bottom 4 clubs. Okay. Right? The Broncos, however, play 7 of their first 12 games at home, whereas the Eels have the most 5-day turnarounds. They have 4 5-day turnarounds. The Broncos have 1 5-day turnaround.
I can understand the overreaction to the Brisbane schedule because they do get a favourable schedule in terms of home games.
They got a favourable schedule last season as well.
But that's just the beauty of playing for Brisbane Broncos. They obviously love their Friday night fixture, but that's just because that's where they know they're going to get the highest TV audience. You can't blame them for the situation that they're in. But for Parramatta, they play less top 4 teams, more bottom 4 teams. It doesn't really matter. You can't tell who's going to be a top 4 team, who's going to be a bottom 4 team this year. Look at the Warriors. They were a bottom 4 team in 2022, top 4 team in 2023.
Fair point.
So you can't schedule who's going to be a good opponent. You don't know who's going to be injured. It's just, that's the draw. If you're complaining about the draw you got, it's probably because you're a shit team. And if you're a fan base complaining, it's because you have no confidence in your team.
Well, they said Cronulla was the biggest winner of the draw because they're playing 8 games against the year's bottom 4 sides. So, I mean, it is a bit favourable to verse the teams that came at the bottom of the ladder last year more often than the teams that were in the top 4. I feel like that's fair. And then if you're a team like Parramatta who struggled at the start of last season, right? Never really recovered, and it kind of affected them making the top 8. You'd feel for a few Parramatta fans to say we've been a shit draw.
I can only understand the big problem when it comes to the 5-day turnaround. If they've been scheduled for more 5-day turnarounds, that's unfair. But the teams that you're versing, you can't complain about that.
Why does Parramatta get 4 5-day turnarounds and Brisbane only get 1? How does that sound fair?
That's unfair.
Mind you, Brisbane also get a home game against Manly for Magic Round because it's played at Suncorp.
What do you want them to do? Magic Round's played there.
I'm just saying. So how about you give them an extra 5-day turnaround because they're playing Magic Round?
Look, I can understand that. But for me, biggest winner and biggest takeaway from the NRL Draw being released was NRL Rose putting up a post saying the West Tigers looking lost because they're versing no one that finished below them last season.
Well, I mean, because they can. Okay, that's fair. That is fair. Well, let's go into our top 5. Each week we do our top 5, so make sure you check us out on YouTube at the JBK Show and over at Picklebet on Instagram at Picklebet. This week's top 5 is top 5 basketball players of all time.
Top 5 NBA players of all time, starting with number 5, Magic Johnson, who is somewhat underrated these days, had a 13-year NBA career, made the finals 9 times, won the finals 5 times.
Came back out of retirement.
Played in the
Dream Team.
Played in the Dream Team. The best passer of all time. He probably could be higher on this list if he didn't contract AIDS, which had to end his career.
Yeah, no, I could see that happening. He's a quality point guard. I'm going with another point guard for number 4, Steph Curry. Easily the best 3-point shooter. Revolutionised the way that basketball's played. That combination he had with Klay Thompson and leading the Golden State Warriors to multiple championships. The only unanimous MVP in MVP history, in NBA history. I'd say he's up there. He's changed the game for point guards and deserves to be on this list.
The argument came out early in the year, Steph Curry or Magic Johnson. I think on the back of the 2022 NBA championship, his 4th championship and finally a finals MVP, just his three-point shooting ability alone makes him better than Magic Johnson as a player.
4 championships, and he's gotten the better of LeBron, who's on this list.
Yes. Number 3, Shaquille O'Neal, the most dominant big man of all time, full-time NBA champion. If you look at a player who, when in his prime, he was unstoppable. And then you look at his finals appearances alone, he's a 3-time finals MVP, one of only 3 players I think that have achieved that, or 4 players. And then his finals performances. He's averaged 33 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 assists in the finals alone. There's players that make the finals and shit themselves, and there's players that go to the finals and perform at their best, and that's Shaquille O'Neal.
Are you a Shaq over Kobe?
I'm Shaq over Kobe.
Well, we'll give Kobe an honourable mention.
Who won 3 finals MVPs for the Lakers? Shaq did. Kobe didn't.
That's argument settled. Number 2, we're going with the chosen one, LeBron James. From 18 to 40, he's been the best player in the NBA. 4 championships, almost 8 consecutive finals, 10 finals appearances. The guy, again, has been under a microscope his whole career. He's statistically the most dominant NBA player of all time. Only separated by who I think is number 1.
Michael Jordan, the GOAT. 6 for 6, NBA Finals MVPs. He's got the most scoring titles. Bar his tenure with the Washington Wizards, you could say he had the perfect career. All-Star Game MVPs, regular season MVPs. I understand LeBron James can keep up with that kind of stuff, but his finals appearances and finals 6 for 6 perfect record, it can't be matched. And then you go into stuff like his aura. You watch The Last Dance and you understand why Michael Jordan's the greatest player of all time.
I agree with you. I also enjoy the fact that he had a gambling addiction. I think that was a great off-field drama to have, unlike some current NBA players that are holding guns and whatever it be. But no, ultimately, he's the ultimate professional. He was the face of the NBA, took the NBA to new heights on a global stage. He is the GOAT for a reason. Like I said, what separates Kobe, LeBron, and Michael Jordan is just watching The Last Dance and see his career from college all the way to his second retirement. I feel like he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT.
And I just want to say, as a caveat, Michael Jordan and LeBron James are easily number 1 and 2. You can have them in any order. But Rich, from 3 to 10, you could name any other player. I'm saying you could name Tim Duncan, you could name Kobe Bryant, Wilt Chamberlain, Larry Bird, maybe not Allen Iverson. But it's really 1 and 2, and then just fill in the numbers, which is what we kind of have done.
Honourable mention goes to Kareem, Kobe, Tim Duncan, Wilt Chamberlain.
Bill Russell maybe, but I don't really rate him. Larry Bird.
That could have been in the top 5 there. But let's go around the grounds to some international sport. The EPL update, Nick, you kind of prophesised the downfall of Tottenham. They've now lost 2 in a row. You said that this was going to happen. Hot start, but it's a long season, the Prem.
If you go back to the game where they drew against Arsenal, they got severely outplayed, but somehow came away with the draw. Then they won a few more games against some mediocre teams, and people were just pumping, Ange Ball's the best, Ange Ball's the best. But it's all come crashing down now, which is what realistically was going to happen. I'm not going to say that they're a bad team because they still are a good team. They've got some good players. James Maddison's been playing out of his skin. But top of the table is just not a realistic expectation for them. They got maybe a chance at playing Champions League next year if they make the top 4. But again, that is more of a stretch than what people have been parading on about the last few weeks. Mm-hmm. They're going around to other teams. Our Arsenal boys have been playing great. They got another great win on the weekend. They're now coming second. And I do think they're the only team that can contest Manchester City for the title this season.
They're playing a little bit of catch-up, but they're right there. They're neck and neck, especially with Man City coming off what I think was one of the best Premier League games this season so far, that 4-4 draw with Chelsea.
Again, if Chelsea play good, they can maybe make a run. But Manchester City, they're the people that are being hunted. They're the fixture that when you're versing them, the team's going to rise to the occasion and try and take them down, which is why these little 4-4 draws, 1-1 draws, they're going to come to them at the end of the season.
You said Arsenal. What about Liverpool?
Liverpool are the team, I think, that are flying under the radar. Anytime they have a home game, Mo Salah seems to be the best player on earth. And when he's playing at home, Liverpool look like the best team in the Premier League as well. They've just got to iron out some deficiencies when they're playing on the road, and they can, maybe make a chance and make a run at the top 4. But the way they play on the road, it just isn't up to scratch for a top-tier Premiership contender.
Okay, fair enough. That's our EPL update. But like I said, we're in that lull period. November right now, December. The NRL season's going to start heating up closer to March when it hits Vegas. But you're in that period now where there's not a lot of sport on.
Domestically.
Domestically. In Australia, there's not a lot of sport on right now. And, you know, we're really stuck with watching, you know, the next big boxing event, the UFC that's on the weekend, maybe the F1 that might show up in Vegas here and there, but there's not a lot on right now. But domestically, if you want to really look at it, I want to tell you what's on. The A-League is on right now, okay? A-League regular season's on right now. Not that I can tell you I haven't caught a game, right? The AFLW Finals is on right now. You a fan of the AFL Women's game?
I can't say that I am.
You haven't seen a game? I know some players, you know, some players are very, very friendly. They've done some work with Budgie Smugglers. I'm a fan of some players, haven't watched the game. And the Cricket World Cup, right? We went to the Ashes. We're definitely kind of entertained by the Ashes because England were playing a kind of young man's game, going for sixes, playing baseball. First time I probably said I've watched and sat down,
gotten into cricket
at Lords and gotten into cricket. So I can say I've been paying a little bit of attention to the Cricket World Cup.
You see Maxwell hit a couple centuries.
Exactly right. So I want to ask you, if you had to rank the sports that are on right now, rank these three in terms of which ones you would watch. The A-League, the AFLW Finals, or the Cricket World Cup?
I'm going to say this is extremely easy. I'm taking the Cricket World Cup because it's the most important.
Yeah.
I'm taking the A-League because I might watch it. And then I put an AFLW third because I'll never watch it. It's just the reality of what it is. It's a harsh reality. I'll never watch the AFLW.
Gun to your head, you had to watch it. You're putting that third?
Gun to my head, I can maybe watch an AFLW game.
But it's below the A-League.
But, like, I had to find out from you just today that the AFLW Finals were on. How am I supposed to know that? I saw a tweet the other day that they're averaging...
Do you know who's in the finals?
Sydney Swans are. I saw that. The Bloods.
Who are they playing? Okay. I'm not going to put you to the test. I'm relatively similar. Maybe you could substitute A-League with cricket. Not to say I'm the biggest cricket fan, but, you know, I can't face a ball.
But I
could go play six-a-side soccer. Do you know what I mean? So I could maybe go A-League 1, Cricket World Cup 2, AFLW Finals.
Where I'm saying I know my interest in cricket is higher is because my TikTok and Twitter feed has been showing more Cricket World Cup things. I've seen, you know, Glenn Maxwell's century. I've seen, you know, South Africa and New Zealand being the two best teams in the comp right now. So I'm just saying, you know, I've seen people take a shit on Piers Morgan in England for how bad they're going in the World Cup.
Shots at Piers Morgan.
So, like, I'm saying my gauge of interest has been Cricket World Cup 1, A-League 2, AFLW 3.
Okay.
And it's, you know, it's actually a lot closer than you think between 2 and 3.
I feel like that was fair and that was a great reasoning for the ranking. No, that's completely fair. Going over to streaming battles, right? We haven't really covered this as a sport, but I'm going to make it a sport, okay? Kick streamers getting into punch-ons and fighting. We saw Sneeko and Bradley Martin get into a little scuffle at Zoo Culture, right? They wanted to settle it by a spar. Bradley Martin, it was kind of unfair, punched his head off, right? Probably said it was going a little bit too hard. It was just supposed to be a spar. Sneeko hasn't really recovered. Hasn't got back in the ring since.
Well, what does Sneeko weigh? About 40 kilos?
Yeah, he's a fairly light. He's been getting in the gym.
Bradley Martin's 260.
He's 260 though, brother. But no, look, at the end of the day, Bryce Hall stepped into the boxing ring. He's been doing some bare knuckle. Influencers are getting into the boxing ring. The most recent one is John Zerka up against HS Tiki Toki. Now this is a boxing ring by promoter Aiden Ross. Aiden Ross is a promoter for Kick, obviously. He's been organising these fights. John Zerka won a fight under Aiden Ross in these Kick streaming battles. John Zerka's been going at HS, trying to get him to fight for about a month now. Nothing's happened. Have you been seeing this?
I've seen Zerka parade himself on Instagram and Twitter, mostly Twitter, saying how, you know, if he sees HS, he's going to kill him, or, you know, he'll, you know, completely dominate him. But from the vision that I saw recently...
So what happened was Zerka runs up on HS while he's on a date in Miami, calls him out outside. Zerka's got his loafers on. HS has got his loafers on. He's dressed for a date. Not really in fight, you know, he's not really ready for a fight. John Zerka's got the MMA gloves on. He's in athletic wear. He's ready to go. Goes onto the street, and Zerka gets cleaned up. Just one shot to the head. He's fallen over everywhere. He's trying to say that he slipped. He's trying to say he had some funny slips. But it ended up boiled onto the road in front of cars. He's got HS on the floor, and they kind of just call it a day. But I'm going to say HS won that impromptu fight. He hit him with a couple of 1-2. Zerka was onto the floor. And by the consensus of social media and popular opinion, HS won the fight.
Everyone besides Zerka thinks HS won that fight. Zerka's the only one parading around on Twitter saying, oh, I had him down, I was choking him out. Listen, mate, you got clocked, you got hit twice.
Yeah.
There's no way you can look at that and say HS didn't dominate him. And, you know, credit to HS, you said he was in his loafers, he wasn't really dressed for a fight, and he still, you know, he still swept in and got him a couple
But
times.
is this the new thing? Streamers just getting together, whether it's in the street, whether it's in a sparring ring, and say, let's just settle it for a sum of money? I think Kick, or whether it's it's not going to be on Twitch. Kick will probably be the only one that are hosting it. There's this new sport of Kick streaming boxing.
I want to know, so Jake Paul, when he fights, it has to be a sanctioned boxing fight. But if there's a street fight and no one presses charges, is that allowed? I don't understand.
No, well, a lot of people came out. Myron came out. A few other people came out and said, these guys can be deported for what they're doing. They're pretty much committing assault in public. So
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
It is illegal, but I don't think charges are going to be laid by anyone.
Because, I mean, HS could say that he assaulted him.
He did assault him. He ran up on him and probably threw
And
the
look,
first
I
punch.
think, look, my biggest takeaway from this is Zerka embarrassed himself. He came in with MMA gloves, athletic wear, jumped him, and still lost the fight. So I don't know how your ego can recover from that.
Yeah, he's going to have to take some time off and probably get some wins on the board in the Kick streaming boxing.
Maybe you should just fight Aiden Ross, someone that he can pump.
That he know he can beat.
Yeah.
He can slap around. But anyway, I think that brings us to the end of the show. Make sure you keep an eye out for any future Kick streaming boxing events. But yeah, that is all from us. Make sure you subscribe at the JBK Show. Keep an eye out for clips at Picklebet Online on Instagram and Facebook. But that's all from us today for Prime Time. Back to you in the studio, George.